get to work. All right, here with Troy Casey. Some of you may know him as Certified Health Nut online. He's a father, he's a health and wellness practitioner, and author of Ripped at 50 Journey to Self Love. Troy, you have inspired millions of people for quite some time, at least since I've known you. You've probably been doing it a lot longer than that. I want to talk to you about that today. It's great to have you on, and I don't think we've actually really had a conversation like this yet, so I'm excited to do that with you.
Well, thanks for having me on. I'm grateful to share anything I've learned over the last 35 years or so.
So, how long have you been online with the presence and trying to better people in that regard?
So I started Certified Health Nut 20 years ago. Actually, it started a little bit before that. I was living in Hollywood doing stand-up comedy and acting. And I had the vision for Certified Health Nut. I was working with an herbal company in the Amazon. I've been studying natural medicine, nutrition, herbs, all forms of healing. And I was down drinking ayahuasca with the Indians, Shipibo Indians in the Amazon rainforest. And and I had a vision of Certified Health Nut, and it was born in the Amazon. And so I was living in LA at the time, and digital communications were brand new. And so I came back with all this exotic footage from the Amazon, and YouTube was a brand new reality. So I started posting on YouTube in 2006.
Okay, that's excellent. Could we jump into the Amazon a little bit? I want to know about that because you hear that a lot, but I don't know. I think a lot of people are full of it when they say it, but I know you're not. So, what was that journey like?
So I started studying herbs and nutrition and fasting 35 years ago as a Versace model. I was sitting in Milan. I had issues with bloating and digestion, and I knew nothing about nutrition. And the agents were ruthless. You know, they're like, "Oh, honey, you're fat," you know, and I'm
Right.
just a kid
Right.
straight out of college, you know, and I didn't know anything. And so I went down to the bookstore and bought a book on nutrition and herbs. Jethro Kloss's Back to Eden. You can find it in any health food store to this day. And it talked about herbs, and one of the herbs in there was dandelion, and it was a known diuretic. And I was bloating, and it was affecting my face and the way I looked, and whether I could go to Vogue that week or not. And so I started taking dandelion, and I instantly saw the bloat go out of my body, the inflammation go out of my body. And so then I got into fasting and juicing, and learned about flushing out my liver and taking other herbs to cleanse my body. And so about 15 years later, I was living in Los Angeles, and I came across this gentleman called Dr. Schultz, and he had a great herbal company. And I started utilizing his herbs on my fasting protocols. Got great results. And so I had an affinity towards herbs. And I used to hand out his catalogs to my other actor buddies like, look, you're in front of the camera, take care of yourself. Here's some valuable information. People are like, oh, what are you trying to sell me something? I was like, no, here's just a free catalog, you know, read about how to take care of yourself. And so I had been handing out those catalogs for years. And then somebody turned me on to an herbal company out of the Amazon rainforest. And they were the most powerful herbs I had ever put in my body. And there was a business opportunity. So I started working with them, and I won a trip to the Amazon in 2006. And I went down there. I was introduced to the Shipibo Indians, who were our vendors at the time, and they are the keepers of ayahuasca. And I stayed in the jungle for a few weeks after that and drank ayahuasca with them. And so, and I worked for that. I worked with that company for about 8 years, and it was a profound experience. I studied with the top ethnobotanist at the time, Dr. James Duke, and many other healers and doctors in natural medicine. And so it was a life changing experience. The company was called The Solution to Saving the Rainforest by the Cousteau Society in a 2006 PBS documentary. And so I took that experience to heart. And I came out of the jungle after drinking the ayahuasca, having an open heart and an open mind, and then seeing a mountain of sawdust and two by fours going on barges up to Home Depot. And I was like, the rainforest, you hear about it being destroyed. And I realized that as a man, that's my responsibility. This is on my watch. And so everything has unfolded on YouTube ever since.
So the journey in the Amazon for you was how long did you say you were out there?
Uh, I worked with that company from 2005 to about 2013, and I went down there on 4 expeditions, staying with the Indians and drinking medicine and researching the plants.
All right, so you did a few excursions out there. It wasn't just one long one.
Correct.
Right. And what if I ask, I mean, what was the most difficult part for you during that journey? Because a lot of people would say, well, I don't have all my stuff, but I have a feeling you didn't really care about that much.
Well, I mean, once I started drinking the ayahuasca, I realized how powerful it was
Right. Yeah.
and how serious it was, and the potential that it had to, heal the psyche, purify the body. It penetrates the liver, the gallbladder, the intestines, but more important, the nervous system where we hold our beliefs. And so, I grew up. Um, I've been on my own since a very young age. Some people could call that trauma or whatever. I just think it's our soul's journey of awakening. And so I was a little rough around the edges, and those challenges started to show up in my adult life. I had alcoholism when I was in the fashion industry. I was partying extensively. I cleaned that up. I got into Vipassana meditation. The ayahuasca helped me as well with that. But Vipassana meditation helped me in 1999, and it wasn't until 5 years later that I was working with the herbal company. And so it's just a progression of healing and self exploration and study, you know, uh, inside the self, right? Um,
Right.
but
Yeah, the journey that you even started out with the modeling and acting, that alone is a self-exploration journey, and that alone will really teach you quickly about yourself because you have to do things like you said, you thought you were in shape, and I can relate being in the professional wrestling business. You think you're something, and then someone tells you, "Well, you're not ready for TV because you could probably lose 5 pounds." And you're like, "What the hell?" Like I'm jacked. I'm great. And they're like, well, no, you're not. So you experiencing that as well, I can relate to that, but it really forces you to kind of self-reflect like on what is important and is this the life you really want to lead.
well, I think any good job, or career, or the entrepreneurial way will take you into a journey into the soul if you heed the call,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you can get that from working a regular job, I'm sure. However, when you're in the entertainment industry, and a big part of what you are selling, because we're all selling something, right? A product or service.
That's
And a
right.
big part of what you're selling is yourself. And if you want to be better, or you want to advance, or you want to, all actors, singers, they do, a lot of people do, deeper work, or work on themselves, or work on their instrument, or become healthy, or stay healthy so they can have a long, extended career. I've had a career for 35 years in front of the camera. A lot of the guys that I modeled with, many years ago, some of them are dead, or they have problems, they've aged, right? They didn't stop partying.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my career is extended. And so I think having a career in front of the camera makes you dig deeper. Having a career as an artist, can make you go deeper if you want to be better, if you want to explore different avenues. And as an artist, to stay relevant, you must pivot, right?
That's right.
Because what works when you were younger doesn't necessarily work now.
That's right. And what was 2, even 3, 4, 5 years ago is totally different now. I mean, look at even the landscape online. It's just so different and it's difficult to keep up with, and you do have to keep evolving. So if you are selling yourself, which is what you are doing in the entertainment space, you have to find new creative ways to be different in a world where everybody is trying to be different, but also fit in at the same time.
Yeah, I'm
So
not interested in fitting in. I'm
neither am
interested.
I.
I'm interested in paving the way.
That's right.
I'm a trendsetter, not a trend follower.
That's right, man. And that's why I gravitate to you. And I have for a while because you're everything you do is really intriguing. Just that story about the Amazon, I actually did not know that about you, but that makes me like you a whole lot more because I could name probably everyone in my life, probably including myself, unless I had you there, that would be unwilling to do that. I think. You talk a lot, Troy, about mental health. It's a big staple in your book, Ripped at 50, which you sent me this book a few years ago. How old are you now? Because you still look fantastic.
I'm 60 this year.
Well, that's
Whoa.
amazing. That's amazing. If we're talking about mental health, which we kind of are right now in the journey of self exploration, what are some non negotiables for you every day that you must do for your mental health?
Sleep, first and foremost,
Hmm.
right? Sleep. At 60, I don't mess around with my sleep. And I learned those lessons in my late 40s, and in my 40s in general, just having children. I started having children when I was 40. And so any kind of exhaustion or adrenal exhaustion, it's directly related to sleep. So fine tuning my circadian hygiene. I don't mess around with my sleep. So that's a non negotiable. Going to the gym and moving my body is a non negotiable. And I can go for a hike, a walk. I usually walk the dog once a day. Um, on a lazy day, I'll get on my bike. I've always had a bike when I was living in California, and it's very flat on the beach. When I moved to Sedona and here in the desert, it's very hot and there's a lot of hills. So I bought electric bikes. So I move all day, every day. That's a big part of what I do. So that's a non-negotiable as well. And actually lifting weights, and I did squats this morning. It just makes you feel amazing, right? It gets all your serotonin and dopamine, the feel good chemicals, your endorphins, and that's a big part of my mental health. Another non-negotiable for me is meditation and Vipassana meditation, silent meditation, 10-day courses in silence. That's what healed me from alcoholism in 1999. I did that religiously, a couple hours a day, multiple courses per year, for about 6 years because it was such a profound healing for me. And it really helped me. And then I had children, started a business, got married, etc., and got off the path a few times when I ran into trouble and I started meditating more, but I wasn't consistent for long periods of time. And 7 months ago, I was having some big challenges in my life, in my business, and I was just hitting a brick wall. And it was affecting my peace, anxiety, fear, um, just real challenges with my sleep as well. And so I sat another 10-day Vipassana course in September, and then I sat another one in January, and 2 hours a day, most days. And it helps me so much. Like anxiety and depression is just completely obliterated. And there's so much crazy going on in the world today, and I feel good. I feel at peace, like 100% peace. I still have my ups and downs. A big part of my journey has been anger and my reactive patterns. And the Vipassana really just helps me create so much peace in my life. And I just made a video about it today. I mean, I've done the ayahuasca, I've done ibogaine, I've done powerful psychedelic research. I've worked with indigenous healers all around the world, Maori healers for many years. I practice organic food, fasting, cleanse and detox. Meditation is the most profound tool that I have found for peace and harmony and mental health.
It's
Right.
beautiful.
Well, you bring up, sorry, Mike, you got something?
No, yeah. During your intro, you struck a chord with me because since COVID, I've noticed this a lot. I'm 40, Zach's 30. You look great. You're 60. So we have a lot of different generations. My generation, what I'm noticing is a lot of people going down with liver issues.
Mhm.
So you mentioned cleansing the liver and the importance of that. Because of COVID, people became alcoholics. People started drinking more. The generation below me, Zach's generation, they're not drinking as much. But that 40-year-old right now, like I can't tell you, I on top of my head, I could think of 6 people who have liver issues that they almost died from.
Well, it's not only the alcohol, but it's also the sugar, right? And now also all the ultra processed foods and the seed oils. So, and then we're not even talking about the environment and all the environmental degradation and the toxicity that's in the environment. And my herbal mentor said, um, if you're sick, then treat the liver. If you got a broken leg, treat the liver. So the liver has over 900 functions. And so, and you can do a liver flush just in one day, just like a water fast. And then you can take some milk thistle and some dandelion and maybe a fresh squeezed juice with celery, lettuce, and that will flush the liver. Beet juice, beet, ginger, celery, and a little bit of apple, maybe a little bit of carrot, but strong beets and strong ginger, that'll flush the liver as well. And then there's a whole host of herbs that will get the liver flukes, the parasites that post up inside the liver. And so the liver has 900 functions, over 900 functions. Um, it cleans the blood and uh, it regenerates itself too when we give it the proper nutrients. So I'm a big stickler on organic nutrition, high quality biodynamic nutrition, because the environment with the chemtrails and the industrial waste, we've been pumping uh, billions of pounds of toxic compounds into the environment every single year since the industrial age. And that is bioaccumulating in everyone's tissues, and everyone's biochemical individuation is different. So some people it'll build up in, and some people it won't. But the same food that you eat, because a lot of people like to argue with me, like your body detoxes itself automatically. Correct. When you have the proper nutrition and the
That's right.
proper environment, and we used to hunt and gather. What we were gathering: roots, barks, berries, herbs, bitters, greens. These things are natural detoxifiers. So the same food that you're eating, because you're only doing two things at the nutritional level, at the cellular level, you're only doing two things for nutrition. You're taking in nutrition, and that same nutrition helps the cells expel waste. So that nutrition should be feeding the mitochondria, giving it energy, electricity, electrons, electrical potential, sequestered sunlight, I like to say, minerals, and then that same nutrition has to be able to help those cells expel waste, ones and zeros. And so finding out, again, dandelion and milk thistle and doing a liver flush, a couple of times a year. I have my clients minimum clean out the body twice a year, minimum. And that will, anyone who's got, I had alcoholism, anyone who's got major problems, you do that. How I got hooked was I was a model. I was in the fashion industry. I looked in the mirror after 10-day cleanse. I looked like a spring chicken. I was like, boom, that works. And so I kept that in my repertoire for years, and it still has application. So the toxicity nowadays, there's too many strikes against us. We can't afford to eat anything but farmer direct, real food.
No, I agree. Whole, real, nutrient dense food, because it's stacked against us today more than ever. Especially environmentally, and what they're putting into the food. We see with this current administration, are trying to mitigate that a little bit, but we need to do so much more work on that. Like so much more work, and it's an active process every single day because it's difficult. But once you get into a routine, it becomes pretty simple.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Once you bake in a holistic lifestyle, it's like, people are like, what's your morning routine? Like, I do so many things,
Mhm.
but it's part of my lifestyle. It's not a thing. It's just non-negotiables.
Right.
And so and then it makes it much more simple. Like, I don't pay to poison myself.
Mhm.
Pay the farmer, pay the doctor, pay now or pay later. It's your choice. And
That's
once
right.
you go to the doctor, it's over, baby. They're gonna
That's
cut,
right.
burn, or poison you.
Mike and I were on a episode maybe a couple weeks ago where we were saying the pharmaceutical companies don't like us very much because they don't make money on us.
Yeah.
So we are not the kind of guys that they're after because we're not their clients.
You could
Yeah,
tell
well,
companies they align themselves with. If you go to the doctor, they'll recommend things that clearly their favorite rep is selling them. So, like you said, everything's sales. Well, even your doctor's sales, right? Troy, one more thing, and Zach brought me into your whole ecosystem, and I'm excited for it. But you said something very poetic, and it stuck with me. You said the air is poison, the water's poison, the food is poison. And I think when you really look into that, it's the truth. Whether it be the chemtrails are just pollution in itself, or the water, they don't want you drinking the water because they want you to buy the water. The food, I feel like they do that for preservation, but also to get us addicted to this junk, and and make us unhealthy and make us tired and groggy, and just not in a good experience. So that pedestal right there, I was like, man, that's a kind of cool quote to say.
well, and my mentor, the great Paul Chek, he's one of the top strength training coaches in the world. He's one of the top rehab guys in the world. He wrote a book called Under the Veil of Deception. And so the corporations, for example, like the tobacco companies, they invested in smoking cessation programs and businesses. So they sold you the crappy tobacco with over 400 additives that were addictive. And then they also sell you the programs to get off that. And so the pharmaceutical and the tobacco industry is now into the food industry, right?
Right.
All those lawyers and lobbyists, they moved right over to food. And the number one lobby in the United States of America is drug companies. And so the drug companies are the food companies are there to poison you, and the drug companies are there to sell you the solution.
So one of my favorite things, you ever been to Atlantic City, Troy? New Jersey?
Uh,
It's kind of like
no.
Vegas. Think
It's
Vegas, but older people.
the ghetto Vegas. I'm just kidding. I love AC. But
Vegas.
you're going in, speaking of problem, selling the problem and the solution, you're driving in and it's pro gambling billboards everywhere. Free this, free that, and you're leaving. And it's like, got a gambling problem? Here's the solution. It's like, you guys just told me on the way in to spend all my money. And on the way out, you're asking for my money because now I have a problem, right?
Yep.
So it's the same type of thing.
It's great for business. And people think, oh, Troy's into a bunch of conspiracy theories. And it's like, look, I'm just a man trying to figure out and navigate the environment that I'm in, right? And so, whether it's a big conspiracy, at the bare minimum, it's business. And if you want to look at the biggest conspiracy, the money's fake, right? The whole Federal Reserve thing is fake, right?
Yeah.
There's no intrinsic value with
Yeah.
the paper that we have and keep printing, right? And so this is at the cornerstone of like the biggest problem. And so then you have predatory capitalism. And we don't really have capitalism. We have crony capitalism, which is a form of socialism, right? They're propping up all these corporations again that they have all the lobbyists in, they put these politicians in, and then they manufacture laws that support them, not the American people. So this
Very much.
is, yeah, it's collusion, corruption, and business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think as Americans, like the one thing we need to realize is a lot of these politicians, regardless of what side they're on, would rather have dinner with each other than ever with their biggest supporter. Right. So I do focus on that a lot, like, because a lot of ways, like I've lost friends over political arguments, and I'm like, hey, that's not cool. Like, love one another. Let's get through this together. They would lie to us if they put an extra dollar in their wallet. And once you realize that, you could kind of live a better life, and just love people and learn. Like a lot of you said, you're a conspiracy theorist. I try to tend to believe more in what people are telling me, but I'm not naive. And a lot of conspiracies that were once thought to be ridiculous, like if you said you saw a UFO, I believe you now. 10 years ago, you were a psycho and you should be in a loony bin, right? So there has been some changes to what is considered a conspiracy theory and not. But I'm interested to get your thoughts on conspiracy theories and stuff like that, because it is intriguing. I'll lead with this. Do you think we ever landed on the moon?
It doesn't look like it now. If you really, look at CGI and what's presented to me is like I think everything's bullshit, right? The fake news is, and I've had to wake up to that. But if you want to talk about mental health, you have to look at propaganda. Edward Bernays, they did a great documentary on the BBC many years ago. David Attenborough did it. It's called The Century of Self, to really understand propaganda. And Hitler's right-hand man was Joseph Goebbels, right? And he studied Edward Bernays. Edward Bernays was the nephew of Sigmund Freud. And the nephew of Edward Bernays owns Netflix, or the heirs to that whole lineage. And so propaganda exists. And how do you control the human mind? Well, after World War II and World War I, there was so much trench warfare. Dresden, London, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, all these places were bombed to smithereens. And so they wanted to mitigate all that collateral damage. And so they got into psychological warfare, MK Ultra. Well, first of all, they brought all the Nazi scientists and the prominent Nazis here under Operation Paperclip. And then during JFK, when he was murdered, the CIA coined the term conspiracy theorist for anyone who questioned the official story of JFK assassination.
Exactly.
And that carried on to RFK, and then, of course, 9/11, et cetera. And if you actually look at these things, it's all lies and bullshit, right? It's manufactured consent. If you're looking at the TSA and the Patriot Act, and it's like, it's for your safety, the greater good. Whenever they start rolling out the greater good, you're like, oh yeah, right. Yeah. The government isn't our friends, right? The government is part of mind control. So when you look at mental health and you're looking at the landscape and understanding it, since the 60s, we've had MK Ultra. The Vietnam War was televised inside everyone's home. And so it's all about manipulation and geopolitics. And who knows whether it's business deals, oil, basically it's an oil oligarchy that we live in. There's some strategic positions that we want to have, but most of it is about oil. And if you look at the neocons letter in 1999, they wanted to go into Syria, Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, Venezuela, the number 4 producer of oil, Libya, and where's the other place? Iran. And look, we just toppled Venezuela, and we're going after Iran now. So these are all geopolitical elements, and I like to bring things to the 0 point and go to the root level. The 4 human needs that humanity needs is water, food, shelter, and fire. And all of our technology can produce most of that right now. But the food is poisoned, the water's poisoned. Shelter, we can use 3D printing and print enough houses, but instead we're outsourcing that to BlackRock and Airbnb, and then nobody can pay rent, and it destroys rent, and then they raise that, and the money's fake anyways, and they keep giving the money to all these fraud in Somalia fraud and California, hospice and Medicaid fraud. And so it's all coming to a head, though. That's the good thing. And but if you want to look at mental health, you have to really understand the manipulation that is all around us. Psychological warfare, MK Ultra, and they want to make you a slave mind. The final frontier is transhumanism. They put enough silica in your body and enough nanotechnology, self-assembling nanotechnology, and synthetic biology. They want to upload you to the cloud. They want to make you into a smart city, smart human. And those who can afford,
I love
and
this.
those who can afford will have the all-knowing. And then also they talk about the transhumanism agenda, that nobody will be unhappy. So they're going to so they're going to take the life right out of us.
Well, they also say that Elon is saying that with the advancements of AI, that right now you could say is not a good thing, but he's going to say it's going to get good to the point where nobody even has to work anymore, because everyone's just going to be so fundamentally sound with AI that we can just have AI work for us, whatever that means. And then nobody will care about money anymore. So now not only is it a fake to the complete distraction of something that's not even real, but what does that even mean?
Totally.
Yeah.
These are good questions. And I believe in a world beyond money, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe in a world beyond passports, prisons, all the stuff that we have, slavery that we have right now. Right. We're not there. We definitely get to evolve our consciousness. However, the fundamental things that we need are food, water, shelter, and fire. Money's fake. So we have enough natural resources for everyone.
Mhm.
But if you're trying to control the people or control assets or control resources, then of course war makes sense.
Right.
Fake money makes sense.
And keeping your people, I hate to say it, but a lot of times we're used as pawns, right? So most of the time. So I always say that money is nothing. Money means nothing, especially if you go home at night and you're fat, you're miserable, you're depressed, you hate everything, everyone hates you, you have no relationships. So at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is really you, your body, your mind, your soul, your spirit. Can we talk about that for a little bit? Because I know we're on the same page there.
Yeah, I've said this for years. The only thing you really have in the third dimension is your health and your word. And so, authenticity is one of the highest vibrations that you can achieve, and really just, being yourself. You talk about my online presence and reinventing yourself. If everyone would just be themselves,
Mhm.
follow what their heart says and what they're interested in, and develop themselves so they can move through time and space. This is why I use the hot rod and the car analogy for taking care of the body. I see guys in my neighborhood, they got all sorts of Ferraris and McLarens and stuff like that, and they're overweight and they can't walk and they're all jacked up on steroids, etc. And so, so many people are looking for a miracle. They're walking around in one,
Right.
right? You want to buy a Ferrari and a McLaren. Well, you are the spiritual spacesuit. There's no more advanced technology than this right here. So work on optimizing that. Our values are off. That's all. And this is part of the mind control. And this is part of the programming into the material world and the things that don't matter and overwhelming us and demoralizing us with all sorts of ideologies.
Mhm.
Again, back to the mind control. It's like, what do you believe in? Things like feminism were sold to us.
Mhm.
Even look at the political structure. I really thought Donald Trump was actually going to be some kind of different than Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and George Bush and the globalists and this whole thing. And it looks like I got bamboozled again.
It looks like
I
it
mean,
doesn't matter again. Right. Yeah.
totally. The same thing happened with Obama. It's like, oh yeah, black man in the White House, we're evolving and hope and change, and yes, we can. And I'm like, that sounds good, right? But that was just more globalist bullshit,
Right.
more wars, more just absolute bullshit, and the fleecing of America. And
Right.
so it looks like now with the Epstein list that, and I've said this a long time ago because 97% of the senators voted for the war in Iraq,
Mhm.
2003. And that was not about weapons of mass destruction. A random guy on planet Earth was able to see, like, that, no, that's about oil,
Right.
right? I could see that clear as day. And oh, I'm a conspiracy theorist.
They uh,
Well,
they love to insult our intelligence sometimes, right? Because how dare you even speak up at all? It's like you're in school. How dare you have a question that doesn't pertain to this exact material that I'm telling you about, right?
Yeah,
it's
2009.
gaslighting.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2009, I'm in the educational field, going to school to be a teacher. And to find out everything in the Patriot Act, especially Section 507, that had to do with education. Like, one has nothing to do with the other. Why are we infusing things into bills to get passed? So, like, outside of it's under the Patriot Act, so you have to agree with it or you're not patriotic,
Right.
and you can remove some of these things, and it affected the education in our school systems more than it affected the actual uh, protecting us from terrorists. So it's pretty wild.
They're being affected now. I mean, the kids, our
Mhm.
education system, I think us three can agree it's fundamentally broken, but it's designed to be that way on purpose.
Yep.
Correct. And
Yeah.
Rockefeller's designed that years ago. Same thing with the medical industry. It just took years to show up. Um, the cancer rates and it's a farce. The
Yeah.
whole medical industry is a farce. The whole educational system, for the most part, is a farce. They've taken PE and art out of the schools.
I know. We used to have PE every day, and now it's twice a week.
Yeah.
That's
They
ridiculous.
they don't treat the effects of sodium. They don't treat the effects of carbs. Like they don't teach any of that stuff.
They
And like
yeah, correct.
so,
Yeah, Mike. I mean, we were just talking, Mike. We have with one of our partners, Troy, Valley Spring Recovery Center. We were just talking about this, Mike. It was we were talking about school lunches, right? And
yes,
how it's just totally what the hell's going on with the school lunches now.
yeah, it's disgusting.
I mean, Troy, you've
Well,
been around for longer than both of us. You've seen pretty much every angle of what we're talking about right now. And I wanted to ask you, related to all of this, cancer rates are through the roof, autism rates, infectious disease, obesity. And I know we've alluded to it, but what do you think are the main contributing factors in the last 20 years to all these issues?
well, if you look at autism, for example, in 2014, William Thompson, the CDC whistleblower, came out and said that he and his team buried 10,000 pages of data showing a 226% increase in African American boys injected with the MMR vaccine for autism, a 226%
Wow.
increase. Um, and so uh, there was a movie called Vaxxed that was made about that story. And it was produced by Andrew Wakefield, who's been kicked out of the medical industry. And because he was studying the gut microbiome in autistic children and found a correlation and published a paper. And he was the only one kicked out of the medical industry. And he was basically scapegoated. And then he ended up producing this movie with Del Bigtree, and Del Bigtree was the producer of a television show called The Doctors. It was on American television for many years, and Andrew Wakefield got in touch with Del and gave him all this data, and it was irrefutable. And so they produced that movie, and um, so the information is there, and RFK is dancing around this. I don't know if he's dancing. He's trying to expose it as much as possible. I helped fund a movie that he was involved with called the 1986 Act,
Oh, really?
which,
That's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, which exonerated uh, vaccine manufacturing companies from liability in 1986.
Right.
And we went from about 10 vaccines at that time to 72,
Mhm.
right? And so RFK in this fundraising dinner I went to, it was a private dinner, he detailed all the Harvard and Yale data showing that there is no proof that these vaccines, any of them, are safe nor efficacious. They've never been tested in a double blind placebo, whatever the gold standard of science testing is. They've never been proven that way. So this is all
Right.
propaganda, safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective. They even did it during COVID, right?
Oh
And
yeah,
so
we heard 99% during COVID, and look what happened to that.
I mean, so this is just propaganda.
Yeah.
Again, psychological warfare. And so if you look at obesity rates, we got 75% of the American people are obese or overweight. It was 62% when I started Certified Health Nut. One of my first videos I did in front of the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, and it was 62%. Um, what is that? 10 or 15%, 12, 13%. It's grown in 20 years. That's exponential growth. 75% is close to 100%. This is why I do Certified Health Nut. And most of my Certified Health Nut, it's like if I sit there and tell you to eat organic food and here's all the science, that's like Huberman. People, mentally masturbate over Huberman, like, oh my God, this is such great information. But nobody changes anything.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
I think he's controlled opposition because Stanford, by the way, is where it's a CIA outpost and helped create the whole Silicon Valley. Right. And so I think he's compromised just as Peter Attia was and exemplified in all the Epstein emails. And
Mm.
so the bottom line and it's a funny because they put these guys on a pedestal, right? And then they get to sell millions of books. I sell 5,000 books, which is pretty successful, but they sell, millions of books, right? And they get millions of followers. So it's a little bit skewed and so So you see the obesity has exploded, and you see what Bill Gates is doing with the food, the meat, the buying the farmland. Like, they definitely want to enslave people, right? And it takes all my energy to source and eat really good food on a regular and constant basis. And my clients go to Europe, eat pasta, pizza, and ice cream, and lose weight
Lose weight. Yep.
time and time again. So the food is poisoned here. And then you look at the cancer rate. Nixon called the war on cancer, I think, in 72. And we have grown exponentially cancer rates. And at the same time, with how much money we give the American Cancer Society and
That's
all these
right.
other programs and all this research and all this bullshit on cancer, disease comes from toxicity and nutrient deficiency. That's exactly where disease comes from. And Hippocrates said, "Let thy food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food." And
Mhm.
we've gotten so far away from actually what food was, because we used to hunt and gather. And so what were we hunting? Grass-fed rumnets.
Right.
What were we gathering? Roots, barks, berries, herbs, greens, bitters, etc. Whatever was in the environment that we could eat. And so, and we've just gotten far away from that. So obesity, cancer, and autism, that's directly related to the commercial conduits. What I tell people, my clients, my students, stay away from the commercial conduits as much as possible. Stay out of the stores with all the Wi-Fi and the new smart cities and smart homes, and get into nature as much as possible. Stay outdoors as much as possible. We're also being, sprayed with the chemtrails. So it's all about balance, but get back to nature as much as possible and stay away from commercialism. I told my ex-wife, keep the children away from the state, doctors and the state,
Yeah.
right? We sent them to private school when they were younger because we didn't want them conditioned. We
Mhm.
sent them to Waldorf education because they
Wow.
treat the child as a spiritual being and help them develop their artistic skills.
Back to obesity really quick, when you were talking about over 70%, it's almost at almost half of children, adolescent under 12 years old are obese now. That is a significant problem because you're under 12 years old and you're already obese. Your life expectancy just probably dropped in half. And by the way, this is something that we know we can control and fix, and we just don't do it. Uh, and you alluded to RFK with the adjustments on the food pyramid and what he's trying to do. It's working, but it's not enough. And to your point, we're kind of in this weird place where, do we push it harder? Do we not? I don't know why we don't, because it can easily be fixed right now.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily. But again, these lobbyists and this corporate control and these BlackRock owned farms and genetically modified seeds and
Mhm.
glyphosate, this is again, it's an oligarchy, and petrochemical byproducts are utilized on agrochemicals because it helps them stick to the plants.
Right.
Here's another news flash: 70% of young children eligible for the military can't make it into the military.
That's true. Also, yep.
That is a huge alarm. Number two killer in America for children 14 to 21 years old is suicide.
Mhm.
These are big issues. So people want to call me a conspiracy. Look in the mirror.
Well, you're
This
going to our doctors. You said it. Keep it away from doctors because you go to a doctor. Hey, I'm having some issues mentally. Well, here are some antidepressants. Instead of let's clean up your diet, let's get you outside, let's get you in the gym. Mostly every problem can be fixed by a healthy, nutritious diet and regular exercise. Pretty
Mhm.
much every problem.
Yeah.
And you've got to be a health nut these days to
Right.
actually understand where the good nutrition is. Only 4 to 6% of the food on the market is organic. Call it organic,
Yeah.
biodynamic, high quality. I don't care what you call it, but natural food.
Well, they were putting another problem is that for the longest time, up until a few months ago, what was it, Mike? They were putting Fruit Loops above at the top of the food pyramid, right?
Yeah.
And steak and eggs at the bottom. I mean, what are we doing here?
It's wild.
I mean, that's done intentionally.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
It's
it's hard.
business.
Like you mentioned being in media. I work for iHeartRadio, so we're in front of clients. You're going out to dinner. It's very hard to find things on the menu, to the point where Zach and I were with a friend, and all three of us almost ordered the same thing off the menu.
Right.
And they looked at me and said, "Well, all three of us can't order it, so Powers, pick something else." And it's just funny because it's that hard to eat healthy. You know, we had two options out of the 52 that were on there that we were okay with putting into our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me give you guys a tip, and for all your listeners out there, when you go out to a restaurant, just tell the waiter to tell the chef that you are allergic to genetically modified organisms and
Yeah.
and and seed oils. And
Okay.
I would throw gluten in there too, right? And then
Right.
basically the hunter gatherer diet is meat and vegetables.
That's
As
it.
long as they're not cooked in seed oils, it's better. But basically, I would say 99% of the restaurants out there, they're using seed oils. They're sourcing their smaller ingredients from Cisco, and all that stuff is contaminated with glyphosate and genetically modified organisms. So you got to go farmer direct. You got to go farm to table. There's only a couple of restaurants in the Phoenix area. There's a lot of beautiful presentations and expensive restaurants, but only about 3 restaurants that I'll frequent.
Yeah, it's very difficult, but it can be done. That's the biggest thing. It can be done if you want to do it.
I'm living proof of it,
That's it.
baby.
I can't believe you're 60, man. I love it. This is great.
Great, dude.
I wanted to touch on one thing you said about mental health, though, before we move on, Troy. You were talking about some challenges. Mental health, just as important as physical health, and vice versa. One will carry you if you're having difficulty with the other. How do you combat negative thoughts? What are some things that you go through personally to circumvent that and get on the other side of negative thoughts and feelings?
Yeah. Well, first of all, mind is an embodied process. We are all mind, right? And so mental health and physical health, even though we have 4 bodies, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, the physical and the mental, ultimately it's all one. And so when it comes to mental health, again, the gym is very effective for releasing serotonin and dopamine, building your own neurochemistry, your feel good chemicals. um, I was working out plenty. I was going through a lawsuit. I went through, a bad divorce. I had some ups and downs in my business. I got burned in business. I studied success for years, and nobody ever told me that when you make money, that people come and try and rip you off and stuff.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I was a little naive on that. So I was dealing with a lot of stress, a lot of challenges, and the sleep helps, the fitness helps, the nutrition for me is a non-negotiable. Fasting helps as well. I kept all those practices, but again, it was getting back to silent meditation and
Mhm.
serious meditation practice daily, um, that helped obliterate that. The gym will help, but I was still dealing with anxiety at night. I was waking up early, couldn't get back to sleep, um, worrying about stuff, and my life, my business still has some challenges. I still have challenges in my life, but for the last 7 months, I've had so much peace and harmony from the meditation. And I just made a video about that, and I gotta say, for all the things that I've studied around the world and studying spirituality, comparative religions, etc., the meditation, at least for me, the silence, and I've heard it say, prayer is you talking to God, meditation is you listening to God. So, whatever the meditation does, and there's massive amounts of research at the Heart Math Institute, heart rate variability is one of the key indicators of overall health. And when your heart and mind have coherence, and heart rate variability is the coherence of your heartbeat. When that has coherence, it sends a message to the brain that everything's cool here and you can relax. And then the brain sends a message to the nervous system and turns off the cortisol and allows the nervous system to relax. And so, for the overall big fix, I'm going to go with silent meditation, serious practice.
So Mike and I talk a lot about sleep on the podcast. It's probably the most important thing, as you alluded to. We can't do anything without proper recovery, and the most proper recovery is sleep. But referring to your meditation, I know you also do a lot of breath work. Would you combine breath work and meditation as one? And what is some breath work techniques that right now people could start implementing if they wake up in the middle of the night and they can't go back to sleep? Is there something they could do tonight that would work?
Yes. So meditation and breath work are two different things.
Okay.
Pranayama and are the ancient words. Pranayama, which is breath work. Uh, Vipassana is insight, observation. The breath work I do with the meditation is called Anapana, which is simply the observation of what's going on in the nostrils. And that sharpens the mind and focuses the mind so you can go deeper on the inner truths, right, that are happening with the sensations of the body, so scanning the body. That's the essence of the meditation that I practice. And so silent meditation and pranayama are two different things.
Okay.
And so pranayama, you can either do breath of fire, which is in through the nose and out through the nose, pumping the diaphragm, pumping the belly button into the heart. And if you do 30 breaths of that, exhale, hold, inhale, hold, that will clear your mind, in a very short amount of time. You do 3 rounds of that, 3 rounds of 30, you should be able to go back to sleep. Another great exercise to activate the vagus nerve, and which will put you into a parasympathetic rest and digest, feed and breed, relaxation, lower cortisol, etc. Is I think it's called brahmacharya. I call it the bee buzz. And so you put the fingers on your temple, your skull, these two over the eyes, and the pinkies on your mandible, and your thumbs in your ears. And then you inhale, and then you exhale and make the sound of a bee. Exhale all the way out with that, and then inhale, and then again. You do like a few rounds of that, and that will harmonize. Um, it'll activate the vagus nerve, and it'll harmonize your autonomic nervous system, putting you into a rest and digest phase. And so those two exercises right there will obliterate the anxiety, so you can go back to sleep, etc., and put you in a more rested state.
That is awesome. It's something I should try
We
personally.
watched that a bunch of times. Yeah, that was so
Yeah.
cool. I definitely, everything keeps me up at night, so I can't shut the brain off. Uh, so, uh, yeah, I'm going to
Well,
try
you have
that
to
for
try
sure.
that, man.
Well, let me ask you a question. Are you open to healing that, like at 100%?
Oh, the hell yeah. That's the reason why we created this pod was because I saw Zach sharing, we're friends, and I saw him sharing legitimate post that he cared about other people and he was sharing his superpowers with the world. Whereas, like a lot of these guys, not to name any names, they're all about it for themselves. So they're clanging, banging, and doing these things and not really inspiring. Zach was already inspiring. I say, hey man, I want to get myself better. Let me be your guinea pig. Let me, go on this journey with you. But I could be Exhibit A, right? So my journey throughout this is Zach met me at my heaviest, my worst feeling for myself. I always felt that I had a sense of pride in what I did. I wasn't the healthiest person, but I was very confident, very in healthy. And when we met to start this journey, I definitely wasn't at that point. So yes, Troy, please, I'm all ears.
Okay, so good. So I challenge you, and I've witnessed many miracles on this, and I've been practicing it for 26 years. I challenge you to a 10-day Vipassana course. They are donation basis, so they're free if you don't have the money. There's centers all over the world. You can go to dhamma.org, dhamma.org. find a location near you. I have friends; they'll fly out to California because there's three places in California. There's one outside of Dallas, which Jack from Jack Dorsey from Twitter, he sat courses there. There's one in Massachusetts near the Cape, in between Boston and the Cape. And so there's centers all over the nation. And so I challenge you to sit a 10-day course. Now, if you have a family and a business, you're going to have to figure out the time for that. However, I guarantee your life will change and the anxiety will be completely obliterated. Now, 10 days will change it. And then the practice is 2 hours a day, which is a bit of work. However, I am living proof. Otherwise, you would have been snorting coke with me and slamming scotch.
Now, 2 hours, does it have to be 2 hours straight, or can you break it up throughout the day?
I'm sure you can break it up, but the sitting period and the technique, which was taught by S.N. Goenka, actually, all the courses are taught by a recording from him in 1991. He wanted to keep the teaching in its purity from the Buddha. And the Buddha was a guy that just discovered this, and it's not, there is no ism. Buddhism has turned an ism and a religion to it, but the man taught sit and pay attention to the breath and then the sensations of the body. That's the only thing he taught. There's no non-sectarian, there's no dogma, there's no intellectual ideas. It's just going through this process. The course is 10, 12 hours a day. And so when you get home, find the time and schedule that. I guarantee your life will change. I was there with a woman who lost her son, and losing a child as a parent is one of the most difficult things that you could do. And she couldn't shake it. And she sat a Vipassana course, and it was the one thing that healed her. And so, and I've turned on a lot of people to it over the years. I understand 10 days is a lot and 2 hours is a lot, but I guarantee you incredible results. Guaranteed.
Awesome.
Mike, you've been challenged.
Yeah. We got it done. Like I said, I got to just find that 10 days to on the calendar. But I mean,
Mike's going to come back with a beard like yours, Troy. A couple more things, Troy, before I let you go. There's something super important from your book I wanted to touch on. We touched on a lot, but this one I think is super important. So this is from your stressed chapter here. You break everything up into pillars, and you say the 7 factors of stress: physical, digital communications, psychic, nutritional, thermal, electromagnetic fields, and electromagnetic radiation. And then we have chemical. We have sort of touched on all of them. Mm-hmm. I would like to get into a little bit about the electromagnetic fields, because you say we shouldn't be sleeping near these devices. Just spend a couple minutes on that and how that could help.
Yeah. So electricity, there's energy all around us. We've just harnessed it. And some of this electricity can be, dirty. I think it was Tesla who, Tesla and Edison had the inventions, and they had the direct current and the alternating current. And so you have to create safety with these powerful fields. And if you're an electrician, you know this because a big part of your training is on this safety. And so, and when it comes to cell phone towers, we've got towers on the mountains here in Scottsdale. I climbed up to them, and there's huge signs: stay away, danger zone. There's a 5G tower in my neighborhood down the street, and it says, and they're hidden, right? It's on top of a telephone pole, and they put a case over it. But on the telephone pole, it says electrical fields, very dangerous, right? And so, and if you know anything about birds that fly into these cell phone towers, et cetera, they can drop dead, just flying past these electrical fields. And so electrical fields have an effect on the human body. And so that's why grounding is very important. I sleep on grounding sheets, and I keep the majority of electronics away from me, even including the plugs that are near my head, where the bed is and the electrical outlet. I had mold exposure in one of my houses in 2013. And I did a lot of research on this, and mold is exacerbated by electrical fields. So I learned how to turn the breakers off in my house. And the first time I slept with the breakers off, you got to leave the refrigerator on and anything that needs to stay on. It felt like I was camping, sleeping in the woods. And so when it comes to the Wi-Fi, I turn that off at night as much as possible. I keep the phone away from my head. It's all I can do to talk to my children. They didn't have cell phones for years when they were growing up, and I think that's very important that parents do that for their children if they want children that aren't unruly, because the new drug is the phone,
That's
right?
right.
Yeah.
Like keeping them off the data ports. Facebook, Apple, and YouTube executives don't allow their children on these devices, and
Of course.
so and and I was able to get to about 13 years old to where both my children, they didn't have access to them. I still limit it, but my son's 18 now, and I need to get him an external alarm clock because that's his excuse, and so
Right.
I don't want him sleeping next to his head. So again, none of this stuff that I teach is a license to become neurotic. Do the best you can, but if you're having trouble, sleep is the anabolic phase. It's very important that you get good rest. And if you're having trouble with your sleep, look no further than the electrical fields and the electromagnetic radiation. Your cell phone should be turned off or at least 6 feet away from you um, when you're sleeping. I turn my cell phone off on airplane mode when I'm not using it.
Yeah, that's what you said you'd do in your book. Yeah, absolutely. And I think well, for sure there's something to that. But touching on the kids with the phones, it is a drug to them. They are different humans and it is destroying their minds.
Totally.
Totally. I mean, Mike sees it, I see it. They're different people without cell phones.
Well,
How to
and
say bye. They just click and they're gone. There's no etiquette with a lot of these kids when they're talking to people, and it's just like, and they think they could do that in real life too. So society is like kind of clicking and not paying attention, and doom scrolling is an addiction that people don't realize that is affecting everybody.
well, it affects me, and I have a business online, and part of my business is social media. So it definitely affects me. I get sucked into it, no problemo. That's why I have to manage it so much. And that's why I'm so forthwith with my children to get off the devices. They're highly addictive. And here's a news flash for all the parents out there. Pornography is all over the internet. My daughter got caught on pornography at 11 years old. Some of the girls at her class showed her something, and then they were talking about it on the school play yard, and it got back to me. So that's 11 years old, and these are
Yeah.
children in a private school with a zero media policy.
Right. Yeah, it's really bad. It's really bad. I'm actually a part of a company now, Noble Mobile, with Andrew Yang. We pay you to use your phone less data you use, less screen time. It's been very effective so far. Our company's a year old, but one of the biggest drivers for us is the kids. We created something called a brain rot index. So if you pull up your phone, if it's under a certain amount, you'll get not only the rebate back in your phone, but you'll get a little dopamine reward for the end of the day if you could do it. But it's so important to limit that exposure as much as possible. And it turns off the bullshit, right? It turns the attention back on what's important, which is us and our body, our family, right? So that's what we're talking about here. We have to get better in any way possible.
That's correct.
Troy, before I let you go, man, sorry I cut you off there for a second.
That's okay. Go ahead. I can talk forever.
No, I love it. This is great. I had two more things. You have two super viral videos. One of them is you naked in the sun. You love sunshine. Can we talk about butthole sunning?
Yeah, baby.
Yeah. Can we discuss that? Some benefits to it. And if we can do it, let's do it, I think is the message here, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, naked sun just feels good, right?
It
I
does.
learned that camping many years ago, and I was out there and I got a big boner, and I'm like, what's this all about? I guess just being naked in the sun is like,
this is great. Yeah.
It was powerful. And that was like 30 years ago. I had that experience. And so the sun, here's a news flash. The sun is the source of all life on planet Earth, right? And so, first of all, getting sun is essential, right? We need vitamin D. The body manufactures vitamin D from sunlight, right? And it's kind of funny because they're trying to kill the sunlight with the chemtrails now. Uh, and so, but when we eat, we're eating sequestered sunlight, which is chlorophyll from photosynthesis. And then you either drink greens or eat greens, or you eat grass-fed animals. This is sequestered sunlight, right? It's energy, it's electrons, and it's energy. And so if you get sun on your body, it activates the melanin. And the melanin is essential for detoxification and ATP and your mitochondrial function, right? This is the cellular function.
Right.
And so we are like, photovoltaic, panels. We can get the sun on us and get the direct nutrition. It's direct. You don't need any middlemen. You don't need any chlorophyll. Just make sure that you have the proper antioxidants and the right amount of exposure, and you can get energy from the sun. Think about it. People go to the beach, they go on vacation for sunlight. So this is just basic. Everybody knows this. But the second you rip off your clothes and shine your butthole or get your nutsack on there and you talk about it online, we've got pornography everywhere, and we're like, oh, well,
I agree.
we don't talk about that. Yeah, it exists. Well, but the second you're like, my butthole, and get naked in the sun, and they're like, what are the neighbors gonna say? Oh my God. It's like we're all Puritans. We have that puritanical aspect from the settlers here. But the fact of the matter is we're all naked underneath our clothes. And when you get sunlight on the body, it turns you on. No matter what, and if you get it in the thinner membranes or your scrotum, for women, it's great for vaginosis or any kind of candida or stinky smells down. It's good for antibacterial. The sun kills all bacteria. So getting the sun on your body is a no-brainer. Getting the sun in your butthole for 30 seconds to 5 minutes is just going to energize you. Is word around the campfire. I got that from Ra of Earth. He made this concept go viral in 2019, and it pretty much hasn't stopped since. And he was studying Kundalini yoga, so the ancient yoga sutras. And it talked about the hair being an extension of your nervous system and helps you be intuitive for the environment. And it talked about sunlight and how to absorb it. And they talked about getting it on your genitals and your taint. And so that's the story. And no matter what, it makes people think. It's levity. It's a form of humor, and it helps people look at themselves and not take themselves so seriously. And you got medical people with dermatologists. The BBC interviewed me on it. People take it out of context or what. The bottom line is it goes viral, so I'm winning.
That's it. And listen, I agree, man. I have red lights. I have a red light therapy bed at home that I do in the nude often. And I'll tell you, it's very, you walk out feeling like Superman.
It works.
Yeah, it works.
All I think about is like in college, you heard of rumors. I've never witnessed it, of people like sticking vodka saturated tampons into their anus to get drunk quicker. So is that what you're telling me? The sun, by me shining my ass into the sun, are you telling me like it gives me that energy quicker?
Direct injection, man. Well, don't you remember The Wolf of Wall Street, the opening scene? He's blowing coke in that chick's ass.
Yeah.
I accidentally took my mom to see that on Christmas Day.
Oh man.
I thought it was going to be like Boiler Room. I didn't know. In that sense, I thought it was like Titanic meets Boiler Room, and that's the opening scene. And my friends and family will never let me down on that.
That's great.
It's the worst. But yeah,
well,
I got with my mom.
And this is the thing. We have this puritanical element in the United States, and we're all a bunch of prudes. But this is the shit that goes on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
right? And then look no further than the Epstein list and the Diddy parties,
That's
right?
right.
This is the inner machinations of the elite or the celebrities behind the closed doors. And what else are they doing? Because a lot of these levers that they're pulling is trying to control and mind control the children, right? And so we need to stop bullshitting ourselves. Yeah, this type of stuff goes on, and we're all naked underneath our clothes. But hey, does that mean we've got to do all this debauchery stuff on the other side? No, I say no.
That's right, man. And to that same point, there was another video of yours that during COVID went crazy. You were above a fire and you were, I believe you call it nut slapping or nut pounding. What do we call that? And what are the benefits of that one?
So that's called ball slapping.
Ball slapping. Okay.
And I've been studying sexual kung fu, inner alchemy. Montauk Chia has multiple books on this. The most powerful energy we have, or our creative life force, is in our root chakra or our genitalia. And this is in the same vein of the butthole sunning. When we turn that on, we produce more testosterone in that area. That's why squats and deadlifts are very healthy.
Oh, yeah.
And youthifying for you doing squats and deadlifts. And so the testosterone production comes from the genitals, the testes in that area. Not only your androgen receptor sites are in your glutes, in your hamstrings, but also in when you slap your testicles or roll them and knead them, this is where your semen production happens. And so in sexual kung fu, you do exercises for your genitalia to keep them healthy, right? I took a whole class on prostate massage. The number one killer with men over 60 is like prostate cancer.
Yeah.
And so, or it's a major issue. And back to all the toxicity we were talking about, that settles in the pelvic floor. And so to get in there and massage your prostate and massage that area and your testicles. And so slapping them is definitely, a more advanced technique.
Yeah. Did you have to train up to that? Did you start with the slapping or?
Well, I'm an animal, so
yeah.
100.
I might have to start that one. I think Mike and I have some work to do after this podcast. If Mike, here's what we'll do. In a year, we'll have you back on. And if Mike doesn't look exactly like you and started the butthole and then nut slapping, I mean, we're going to have a problem here.
We failed. Yeah. Got to find a new co-host.
The proof's in the pudding, but you got to do it, right? You got to actually do it. I don't recommend slapping in the beginning. The sexual kung fu teachings, they talk about rolling the testicles for however many years you are. So if you're 40, so you roll them 40 times in the day. You have to do 40 right away? No, you don't, but you could do 40 in the morning, or you could do 10 here, 10 there.
10 sets of 10 or whatever it is, 4 sets of 10, Mike. Can you do that?
How my arms are sore. Like the balls are gonna be sore now. Like everything hurts. Like pain is good, right? And that's the body healing and growing. So I guess add the balls to the arms, to the legs.
Well, like other martial arts, especially Qigong and Tai Chi, we want to lubricate the tissues to keep them mobile, right? And we calcify and we age and we dry out. So keeping the tissues lubricated, and that is your reproductive tissues, your reproductive energy, your vitality, your virility. And so massaging that area keeps everything fresh.
Well, at the end of the day, it's like any other muscle. You have to use it to lose it, right?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Troy, this was great, man. This was so much fun. I was really looking forward to it. I'm glad we did it. We'll do it again sometime, maybe in person sometime. I can come out and we could do some of this together. I think that would be fun.
Oh, yeah. Butthole sunning and ball slapping.
There you go.
I mean, I make a lot of jokes, but ultimately all that, even my urine therapy stuff, this is a private practice. I talk shit online and I talk smack online, but it's a private practice, and these are esoteric practices. Everyone else needs to do my 9 pillars that's in my book, and I have a free copy for anyone that will read it. I have a digital free copy of that. I'll give you the link for that.
Awesome.
And so, hydration, nutrition, sleep. Man needs purpose. So my legacy method program is all about that, finding the true north for men from their heart's desire, not their mind on how they're going to monetize it. So purpose, legacy is very important. Nature, grounding, sunlight, hydration, nutrition, movement, breathing, optimizing your diaphragm, correcting your breathing mechanics, and your thought process, right? Programming your mind instead of being a programmed automaton. These are the 9 pillars of health. They're immutable laws. Pay attention to that before you get into the advanced butthole sunning, ball slapping, and urine therapy.
I was gonna do the dandelion cleanse first. Find a 10-day during I turned 41 in August, and then we'll go into the ball slapping and cleanse. Like so, I'm gonna grow into Troy 2.0. I promise. So we'll start with the cleanse and then go from
Sweet.
there.
Well, we got the cleanse for you right up here. This is the ultimate lifestyle transformation. It'll get the liver, the kidneys, and parasites. And so it's perfect for veterans or novice of the fasting, cleanse and detox. So everything that you need. I'll take you to the promised land.
Sweet, man. I appreciate it.
Troy, this has been awesome. Where can everybody find you if they haven't already online?
Certified Health Nut is brand across line @ Certified Health Nut, certifiedhealthnut.com.
Please send us the link so I can I'll share the book as well. I'd love to get that out to some people.
Beautiful. We'll get that right out to you.
Excellent, man. This has been so much fun. Troy, thank you.
Thanks for having me on and letting me share.